Welcome back. Now we are moving forward another conversation. The AI correction, how entrepreneurs and investors can protect and profit from it. Because after the hype, the big question is who is prepared and who isn't. To explore how founders and investors can navigate this correction, can seize real opportunities and avoid the traps, we have three voices who live this market from the inside. They are Sergi Bastardas from Orbio, Sean Seton-Rogers from ProFounders Capital, and our moderator, who is going to be Oriol Juncosa, founding partner at Plus Partners VC and one of the most respected early-stage investors in the ecosystem. I was going to welcome you, but you're already here, so
we didn't know. Sorry.
Big welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Okay, thank you guys. I'm super excited to have here one of the best entrepreneurs in Southern Europe and one of the best investors, city investors in Europe. So the discussion is going to be exciting. But before that, it's 3:30. So let's do a bit of movement. Okay, who of you here are entrepreneurs? Raise your hands. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Who of you here are VCs, investors? Okay, that's good. So have you checked all the entrepreneurs already? No, perfect. So we'll do some matchmaking in the end. Perfect. So guys, I'm super thrilled to have you here, and we will be speaking about sort of something that is really in the news, which is the AI correction, whether it is or whether it is not. So first, have you already sort of seen or experienced a bit of sort of correction? Do you think that we have a potential correction going on in AI? And if so, in what areas do you think that sort of we have seen it more? So a change between what we had in 2020 to 2023 to now 2025.
Para empezar, gracias para la invitación, Oriol. Espero que en el futuro podamos hablar en español, pero ahora solamente puedo hablar español para las vacaciones, para la playa, so we have to switch to English.
Excellent, Sean, excellent.
First thing I have to say is thank you to AI, because as VCs and as founders, if we didn't have, I think it's exactly 3 years and 2 weeks ago, ChatGPT was sort of launched to the general public. And if we didn't have that, I don't know what we'd all be doing right now, because honestly, the markets were crashing. The number of venture capital funded startups was crashing. And right now, AI consumes probably 60–70% of the venture capital financing. So thank you to AI. So even if there's a correction, we're still in a much better spot than we were a number of years ago. So are things crashing? We definitely have higher expectations on what founders should achieve. We have higher expectations on what companies need to do to raise capital. But I think that's the right thing. We're sort of maturing into the AI ecosystem. And it's not just about the hype. It's not just a chat wrapper. We're trying to build real companies now. So if there's a correction, I think it's the right thing to be happening now.
Excellent. And from a founder perspective, I mean, what are you seeing sort of from a client perspective? What are you seeing sort of also from other VCs?
I think it's one of the best times to be building. That I agree with Sean.
Let's do it another one once again. One of the best times to be building. Okay, pay attention.
I think that these inflection points, as Sean was saying, get formed every 10 to 20 years. No? So this is happening now. I think the difference between now and 2020 is there was not a fundamental shift before. It was just financial interest and a lot of money in the capital. So wrong things were potentially funded. I think here, as he was saying, there's truly an impact. Technology is changing. Now we have systems that can do things that were not possible before, that can solve new problems. So I think that companies are really waiting for these solutions to come to the market. So on our side, we are not seeing correction. We are seeing more pull than ever, acceleration, companies putting this in the strategic roadmap, budgets. So I think what we see is that companies are starting to shift from playing with AI to actually really embedding it in the workflows. So I think that there's a relevant acceleration, especially for things like what we do, which is solving a specific clear problem. We solve it for HR, rather than just horizontal players where you could do just small tuned workflows. So on our side, we hope that this stays, but we are seeing customer appetite as high as early Q2 last year or even more.
Excellent. But maybe what we're seeing sort of then the correction is more about now clients and even users are demanding more. no?
Definitely.
I mean, it's not just a wrapper that you can put sort of on AI, but actually you need to deliver sort of real value, no? What you were saying before, I mean, real customer ROI, no? That should probably be the metric.
I think.
No, I think that for sure. I think that there's a difference between the fundamentals and the hype. I think that potentially before there was more hype, no, and people were potentially saying, okay, we'll use this tool because it has AI, no matter what it is. Let's just start adopting it. I think now they are truly trying to understand how to embed it, what's the impact, what's the ROI. Maybe the thing I'm biased because we already started with this mindset. So I think that the people that solve fundamental value and create fundamental value will stay long term. People that just go on, I buy it because it's AI, will not stay for the long term.
We also have to overlay sort of what we see with our experiences as people that are embedded in AI day to day versus actually what the rest of the world sees, and especially large corporates see, right? So what's true is adoption is faster with AI into companies than many other technologies have been in the past. But still, there's a lot of disappointment out there from large companies in their early trials, right? I think there was the MIT Sloan study that said sort of 90% of the large enterprise AI projects to date have failed or haven't delivered close to the value that companies expected. So that's part of the reason why, if there's a correction, it's about actually now having to, what do they say in English? If you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. And so as founders, as VCs, as people that are involved with young companies, we need to walk the walk on providing real value to companies. Because right now, the only ones really making money, because the model creators are losing money. Most of our tech-backed startup companies are losing money. The only people really making money right now are the consulting firms, the big consulting firms that are selling massive AI transformation projects into large companies. The rest of us, we're all losing money right now.
And also, I mean, something along those lines, something that I think is very important for entrepreneurs now building on AI is actually to look at you should not be losing customers. If you're losing customers, if you're not retaining your customers, okay, if you're not engaging with your customers, then that's a problem, because most probably you will be changed very, very quickly for the next one. No? That's one thing that I'm also sort of seeing very, very quickly. So what is the real opportunity then now? Because, I mean, we need to admit that sort of whether sort of in the private world, venture capital, we are not seeing sort of a correction. Clearly, sort of there has been sort of a bit of significant changes, let's say, in valuations or in share prices sort of in the public markets. But sort of as we are entering sort of a more, I would say, early maturity stage of AI, where do you guys see sort of more opportunity that your clients are demanding more of those solutions, that you are sort of looking at investing more into AI? What are those buckets?
Well, at least maybe from the venture side, we have to separate the world into two types. There are actually I forgot the terminology that you were mentioning earlier, but there's some of these hyper-growth stories that we're all desperate to try to find, right? So the big one Europe now is Lovable, which grew 0 to 100 million in its first year in revenue, and then 100 million to 200 million in another 6 months or something, which is truly, absolutely unbelievable and crazy. So there's these extreme outliers, which of course we want to have, but actually the reality is 99.9% of AI or venture-backed AI companies are going to be more like traditional growth businesses, traditional SaaS companies, where it's about showing efficiency of capital spend. It's about showing an ROI with your customers. It's about net dollar retention. It's about customer acquisition costs, all those sort of things. But hopefully, you're building a product that is more transformative to the companies, so they're more willing to use it. And you're able to do it more capital efficiently because you're building on top of AI yourselves, right? I guess from the VC side, that's probably the biggest change, is that teams that 10 years ago used to be 30 people should now only be 10 people to be able to build similar high-quality experiences for their customers.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that one of the biggest opportunities to really AI to be adopted by the enterprise. I think that when you check also some statistics, we are on the early curve. A lot of people have tested, but truly AI embedded in the workflows of what they work is still a tiny percentage. And I think that together with what you were saying, which is basically companies at the beginning thought like, oh, I have an LLM, which is a ChatGPT, I put it here and I see massive value. And the reality, there's no value on that, no? And the value is in embedding the solution in the workflow. And doing this is much more difficult by just plugging in to LLMs, but actually you have to productize all of these workflows. that's what we do. That's what we think that's for HR specifically. And that's where we think the opportunity lies in productizing specific use cases for specific industries, for specific departments, to make sure that they can properly adopt AI in their workflows end-to-end, and there truly prove the ROI of AI, not just have AI because it's nice, it's cool, it does fancy stuff, but actually because it delivers value to the business.
I think, sorry.
I was say actually, and from an investment perspective, that ties in with at least what we've seen. The kinds of companies that are able to raise money and generate traction either tend to be highly verticalized, so maybe even an LLM for a very specific area that needs that level of training and expertise, or they own an entire end-to-end workflow. So it's not just about point A to point B. It's about replacing the entire stream and being able to generate lock-in. Of course, that's hard, because that is about resiliency of the product, that is about change management within companies, that is about onboarding, that is about customer service. Guess what? It's about the things that made companies successful 10 years ago as well. Same thing SaaS companies needed to do, but with AI now.
Yeah. I think that also an interesting framework in order to see what the opportunity is, is about what AI, what Gen AI, what LLMs enable now you to do that you were not able to do before. Or you were not able to do before, maybe because it was physically not possible, or maybe because the cost was just, completely nuts. For instance, why don't you explain? You've done tens of thousands of interviews in the last 6 months that obviously would not have been able to sort of be accomplished without LLM. That's something that you would not have enough recruiters in Spain to do that, no? So just if you can explain a bit of that, just so that the audience understands that there are things that were not possible before AI, and therefore those are the ones that are really creating sort of fundamental value, no?
Yeah, exactly. So on our case, well, I think that we could discuss on ideas and stuff. I think that anything can be rethought or invented in general, but on our case, we were looking at especially heavy operational workforces that they have a lot of turnover. Stores need to hire constantly. They need to be properly staffed to make sure that they have the proper workforce so they can sell, for example, or think of a manufacturer, think of a healthcare provider, and HR teams are all the time firefighting and trying to solve documents here, document there, having an interview, checking for availability. This could not be automated before. You could maybe have an applicant tracking system where you created an application, but you could not do the end-to-end workflow managed by an agent. That's what we do. So basically, we get an applicant, we call it, we understand the profile, we are capable of understanding different levels of skills, different levels of profiles, depending on what the company needs. Then we schedule time with the company, then we have the note on feedback, then we basically send documentation, we digitize it. So what we see a lot of value on our case is basically creating workers, conversational workers that can interact within the organization. So that's a possibility that before, of course, was not possible.
Sergi, I have a question about that, because I was on your website, and you've actually created like personas. You've personalized them as well with names, right?
Yes.
As well. Why did you do that?
I think just to frame, because you go on a website and they say AI, no? You think on every product has AI now, no? So what we truly do is we create kind of a digital worker. So you have an assistant that, if you are a recruiter, works for you to basically do interviews and process it and have context. And you can say to them, call me later, or hey, I have this document to verify. So basically, it's like a persona that has context, can understand it, has tools, so it can call, recall, it can do different stuff. So we thought that the best framing for people to understand that they are not just buying software, they are kind of hiring someone. It's the way it's framed. And also, we are 6xing ACVs of what should be a system of record for hiring. Yeah. So it's also a way to frame it similarly.
So you're creating now hundreds of Marias, Pauls, and so forth for the companies. That's all good. Excellent. So listen, let's move to the founders, which is sort of the vast majority of the audience that is comprised here. I mean, how should founders sort of think about, I would say, the roadmap and the protection and potentially even sort of the profiting from a correction? Meaning, sort of, we already had a correction between 2022 and 2023. We'll learn a few things, no? I mean, if we fast forward maybe sort of the next 18 months, if we have one, and for us here in the VC world, having a correction basically sort of means that sort of there's no money flowing and that there's no more fundraising and things like that. We don't care so much about IPOs and so forth, no? But so how do you think that sort of I mean, founders should have in mind in order to understand sort of the next 24 months and be better prepared for that level of correction? Maybe, Sean, if you want to start.
Yeah. If we knew what the next 24 months was going to be, we'd all be way richer in 24 months. None of us really know what's actually going to happen here. And I think from a founder perspective, yes, the concern on a correction is that. It just means less money flowing. It doesn't mean people aren't going to buy AI products, because obviously large companies are super interested in this. It doesn't mean you won't be able to recruit people to the business. It is about that capital flowing. And then actually, one more thing just to scare you, because this is the one thing we also live in fear of, is sort of ChatGPT 6.0 and what it's able to do, and whether all the work that we've put into building these highly verticalized solutions is all for naught, because any company can go in and just craft something in a second. But obviously, we don't know what's going to happen there, so we have to future-proof as much as we can. So if there's to be a correction, the way to get ahead of it is to ensure you're well-financed. So if you can't raise money now, if you're on that good track to raise money, be very careful with your money as well. I think what hurt a lot of companies in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 was literally spending like crazy, raising money to show that you could spend money, to raise more money, to spend more money. It was absolutely crazy. It was the zero interest rate sort of world in which we lived. So that doesn't exist right now. And as an investor, what gives me confidence is being able to see a repeatable playbook, a repeatable story in place from a startup. So if you can show that with 2 million euros raised, you're able to accomplish the following 5 things, it gives me confidence that with another 5 million euros, you'll be able to do 10 times that many things. And so I think every time you put money to work, think about what is the story, what are you trying to prove with that, and how you can show that it's working. Because I think then, even if there is less money flowing out there, you'll still be incredibly well positioned to be able to raise money.
I think related to this, focus on fundamentals rather than hype, right? I think that, again, we were discussing the companies that will stay, that will fundraise, will be the ones that truly change something, that truly add value to the companies and are capable of monetizing. And I think this will be no different. I think if there is a correction, I always think, and we're joking, no, like correction should be on the public markets, but it should not affect VC, because VC invests in a 10-year period, and the 10-year fundamentals are great, but that normally doesn't...
Any correction affects.
It affects, which a world we wish. But I think as focusing on the fundamentals and making sure you are cash conscious, not just by hype you burn too much, unless you are on a business that is just binary, where maybe you just need to grow like a Lovable or others. You need maybe to be more aggressive. But if you're capable of being more on the SaaS type of business, SaaS AI type of business, making sure you're efficient and focus on fundamentals.
Something that in 2022, 2023 worked well for us was that, I mean, if you can build a sort of a company that is lean enough, that if at some point in time that sort of you say, hey, listen, the next round is very difficult. Okay, the Series A that I thought that I was going to have, it's very difficult. Okay, you can put your company basically on profitability relatively quickly. No, meaning, hey, I can go maybe sort of, I can reduce my growth maybe from 200% year over year to maybe sort of 100% or maybe 70%, maybe only for 12 months if you need to survive. But then you can go down to close to profitability because you're very lean, and then you can scale back up. Okay, that's something that for us worked as well. And that sort of leads me to another thing. No? I mean, we have been talking a lot about sort of how the companies interface with AI with their own customers, but how the companies get more efficient internally with AI. No, I mean, how that may also be sort of a kind of a solution if sort of money stops flowing into the companies. Any views on that?
I 100% agree with what you said. We actually have in our 6 criteria of how we assess how our portfolio is doing, one of the criteria which we added starting in 2021 was path to profitability. So we actually say now, if there's no money available, is there a reasonable chance they can get on a path to profitability, or with insiders putting some more money in, there's a path to profitability? Because I think you can't be wholly reliant on the fundraising treadmill anymore. So the good news is that companies should be able to be more efficient than they have been in the past. I mean, if I think about, we use Attio as our CRM. Their search is fucking terrible. For such a good company You can't search inside your notes. I am useless, but I have gone to Google AI Studio. I've built our own meta search engine on top of our CRM that allows us to go in and do things. So in Supabase, I'm syncing the GitHub to the databases and doing all of this. So if I can do that, I can only imagine what a 100x engineer is able to do nowadays. So from a company perspective, you don't need that big of companies, right? We keep talking, eventually we will have the first billion-dollar unicorn with one employee. And I actually don't think we're that far away from that happening. Where companies get, I think, really people-intensive is building all the customer success around the actual core product. It's building the sales SDRs, it's the closers, it's the onboarding people, it's the customer success people, it's answering customer queries, all that sort of stuff, right? But I think the core product development can be done quite efficiently nowadays.
And actually, Sergi, in your case, you also kind of sort of in your fundraise, you probably also sort of took a view on the next few months or the next couple of years, and therefore kind of sort of you probably sort of raised. I mean, you size up your fundraise sort of in a certain way. Maybe you might want to sort of talk to the audience about that.
I was thinking a bit as you were reflecting. I think that despite we can talk about the market, you need to understand your sector more than anyone, right? So who are you competing against? How much are they raising? How relevant a speed to market is, no? And I think that you have to be aggressive. And I think sometimes you have to be more aggressive, and I think sometimes you have to play defensive. And there's no one better than you guys as founders that have to take these bets, no? And so on our side, I think it was a mix, no? I think we had the opportunity to put that we were growing much faster than we expected, so that's always good news. And we had our lead investor and also Plus as an investor wanting to double down, and we decided that it was good because it enabled us not only to have more money in the bank, but actually to deploy faster on top of the growth that we were seeing. But I think on our side, we play on a place that is competitive, that is aggressive, we need to move fast, but at the same time, we go on enterprise software, which is also, you cannot move as fast as a Lovable, no? As an example. So I think that in our case, we are quite efficient, but at the same time, because we grow a lot and we have quite good margins in our case. But you need to understand your industry and understand.
And are you seeing that now your startup is a lot more productive than your first startup?
Yes.
Now with AI? Well, any concrete examples?
We use AI everywhere, so we started using AI a lot in the prototyping, product development, engineering, so there we use it a lot. So it was not about thinking, oh, should we use AI or not, but actually how do we use it and how do we make sure we create the right code. So actually, instead of spending a lot of time writing code, developers spend much more time reviewing code. We work with Cursor, and we have Cursor rules. We are putting our design system inside of Cursor, so basically you don't have to design features from scratch all the time, but actually engineers already design if they have certain taste. We don't have PMs, we have the engineer much more closer to the problem, so they can also develop it faster. That's, I think, the area where we put it much more AI. Then we have different things like we also use Audio as our CRM, and we have a bunch of automations. We also use it for outreach. We use it for all meetings. In all meetings, we have an assistant. So if I cannot go in a meeting, for example, I can just receive the notes. So it just creates not only efficiency, but much more of a fluid organization that has context all the time of what is needed.
If you need to buy a product that's search on Atio, I can sell you my product.
Yeah, perfect.
and Sean, in your, you're now in your fourth fund,
correct? Yes.
Correct. So if you had to go back over the last sort of few corrections that we have had, not only in AI, but 2022, before that, I mean, what were the companies? Could you say that the companies that survived and that did well post-correction had certain traits in common? Or maybe not companies, but maybe founders, so something that you can distill that kind of sort of word, or maybe sort of the way in which they decided what to do, in which they faced the issues?
That's interesting. I'd not thought about that. And that wasn't a prepped question either. So
yeah, sorry about that.
I have to think on the spot on how to answer that as well. There is one thing that we all need to appreciate is sometimes how lucky you can be to be in the right place at the right time. So, for example, we were investors in a big travel company called Get Your Guide.
One of the biggest, by the way.
Probably going public. They're probably going public, as they say, next year. Multiple billions in revenue, profitable, tens of billions in GMV. But but they raised a big round of capital in November of 2019. And they're a travel business. Their revenues went to zero in March of 2020, completely zero. In fact, it went negative because they were refunding customers, and we were having negative revenue each day for experiences they had booked. That company's a fantastic business. It'll be a huge success. It is a huge success. If they had not raised that money then, they wouldn't be around anymore. And so I think, yes, be lucky goes a long way. But I think you also make your own luck by working really hard, by, at least for a lot of companies, being on top of the finances, raising money in advance of when you might actually need it, and being able to be really nimble and pivot as and when needed, right? So they were able to actually, leveraging government programs, reduce the workforce really, really quickly down, and then work just on product for basically 9 months, and then bring the business back up at the right time. So again, it's founder resiliency and then luck that ties into this.
That's great. That's great. So Sean, we're just in the last 2 minutes, and I would love, because here we have a big audience of founders, just one thing from you guys that founders would do better to stop doing. Okay. One thing that founders would probably should double down on doing, okay, when we kind of sort of are faced with a potential sort of correction. And finally, I mean, one thing on AI that you would think, I mean, it's going to scale up and that you would personally bet on. Just founders, one thing you stop doing, one thing you should do more, and one thing in AI that really excites you.
Yeah. I would say do not overthink and start building, especially if you're early. Just go and do it. I think that
go and build. Go and be an entrepreneur.
We're saying at the beginning it's one of the best times, and there will always be cycles. But I think these kind of cycles are created once in 10, 20 years, or 30 years. So just do it. The second one is focus on fundamentals and your customers, and make sure that you add value, and especially before you scale. And companies, I'm excited. I'm excited about all of things. That's the thing about the founder.
HR workflows.
HR workflows. Voice-enabled software that takes action. So I think that the new systems that will be created will not be just systems of record that are repositories of data, but actually systems that create action. And in our case, it's basically a conversational system. So I'm excited about all of this, and of course, excited about how we can solve it for HR.
Excellent.
I agree on everything you said. So yes, great time to be building, without a doubt. Focus on what you do best and really push on that side. As far as what interests me, I suppose two things because they reflect who I am and where I am in my life. So one is I'm in my mid to late 40s, closer to late 40s. But so personal health, then digital health, sort of how we survive to live much, much longer and make it through 2 more news cycles, because I think AI will have an amazing impact in that space. And the second, because I have teenage children, what the fuck they're going to do for jobs in 10 years as well. So if anyone can create jobs for them, we got to think about how we're going to actually keep people excited if we do see these job losses that they're projecting.
Excellent. So guys, let's start enterprising, okay? And a big round of applause. Thank you.